been paying attention. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 146, where I'm not going to say pudgy, two people with caloric intake issues talk to you about the Anglican news, and we have great news. The Church of England may have finally solved all of its problems. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and today's December 17th, 2014.
First of all, George and I want to thank you for your donations. As you may or may not know, and you probably should know, December is donation month at Anglican TV. George and I, we don't like to ask for money. It's not who we are. It's not what we do. It's against our nature. However, we need money to run this ministry, so we ask upon your Christmas giving spirit to make a donation to Anglican TV. You can do this by going to anglican.tv/donate. Last week we had raised $1,000 of our $20,000 campaign. We're now up to $2,000 of our $20,000 campaign. By next week, I want to be to $20,000, but that means you really got to start giving, and I don't think it's going to happen that quickly, but that's just Kevin being a hopeful optimist. And if you're a regular viewer of the program, you understand that's who I am. Welcome to Wednesday's abbreviated show. We're going to do a quick taping here because George is off to the airport. George is going to fly. Where are you flying to, George?
I'm flying to Kansas.
Yeah, he's off to Oz. And what are you be doing in Oz?
Well, my mother is just retired. She's 72 years old, and she was the chief psychologist at the Kansas State Hospital for the Criminally Insane.
You must have made the only type of person who could have raised you.
Well, you know, when I was a teenager and I wanted a red motorcycle, it really was disconcerting for my mother to tell me it was a phallic symbol. You just don't want to hear your mother talk like that. Well, she's retired, and I'm flying up to meet them up there, and I'm going to drive the moving truck south to Florida. They're going to be moving to our little town here in Florida.
So you're moving from what we call a idyllic Florida life next to a golf course, a growing church, to a kind of like an Everybody Loves Raymond type situation.
Well, they're not living across the street, just a few houses down.
George, I will be
able to see my father in his bathrobe in the morning getting the paper if I look closely.
You will be in our prayers. So because George has to run off to the airport in about 30 minutes, it's going to be an abbreviated one-take show. And we were going through the stories today. There's lots to talk about. We could talk about the terrorist attack that happened yesterday in Australia. We could talk about today's terrorist attack in Pakistan at the school. We could talk about the more Boko Haram attacks that are happening in Nigeria. There's a
Last week's attack in Kenya that killed 36 from Al-Shabaab. We could do a daily show on Islamic terror attacks, Kevin.
But we thought, let's make today a little bit of a humorous show because some humor appeared in the news, and it was Church of England humor. And I'm a Monty Python fan, so any English humor to me is really rather funny, and especially Church of England news. So we learned, I guess yesterday or the day before, that the Church of England has decided the way forward to keep our churches sound and fiscally available and bring people back into the church is to make our priests and bishops MBAs. And I'm a business owner, and stuff like that just leads me to want to take a bigger sip at Eucharist. And I'm like, I know an MBA. We're going to have to talk about this. George, you're an MBA. Is this the solution for the Church of England?
No, but I give them credit for trying.
Tried. Yeah, they are trying.
Now, it is not a bad thing for an adult, any adult, to have an understanding of basic economics, of finance, of marketing, of leadership, how to motivate people, how to get people to do things. You don't need an MBA to do that. You don't need coursework to do that. You go to Officer Candidate School for the Army and do that. There are lots of ways to gather these skill sets. So in giving training to clergy how to operate in the real world, that's not a bad thing. But thinking that the Church of England can be turned around if its leaders are more fiscally savvy, I think is a foolish thing.
Well, it's foolish for many different reasons. But if you look at the Church of England or England as a whole, England is not a capitalist society. It's not communist yet. It's socialist. And the Church of England gets its money for free. It's part of the a state institution, and the money flows no matter what. So
some of it's money.
Some of it's money. So
parishioners still pave the way for the church forward, but you're right, Kevin. There are deep pockets here and there that do things like buildings and pensions. It's not it's not anywhere near the model of the churches in the United States or Canada.
No. So in that paradigm, an MBA is not as valuable as it could be. Now, I never took an MBA course. God just made me an entrepreneur. I don't know why. And he also makes leaders. You can't teach leadership skills. It's the way it is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and you can't fix stupid. It's one of the wiser things I've heard in the last dozen years. And so when I look at the Church of England, that always pops to mind, that you can't fix stupid. So let's look here at this model. What's one of the first classes you have to take as an MBA, George?
Well, I had to take an ethics class. And I was very young. I was 22 when I received my MBA. I did an accelerated BA MBA program at one of the top 5 business schools in the nation. And like all the other young hotshots, I went straight to Wall Street, went to a company called Drexel Burnham Lambert.
Ooh.
And at the time, there was a fellow named Michael Milliken who was the hotshot of that company. Now, everybody at Drexel who had half a brain knew that they were doing some shady stuff. And then there were other people who were entirely honest as the day is long. Everybody knew who was crooked. Everybody knew who wasn't crooked. And to be taught in business school in your 20s or early 30s that it's wrong to steal from the customer. Don't take a bribe from a purchasing agent. Pay your taxes. Who knew?
Oh, that's so weird.
I mean, man. I mean, you mean I'm not supposed to be feathering my nest? I'm supposed to be working to increase shareholder value? It was one of these, it was a joke class.
Yes.
The people who were going to be honest were going to be honest. The people who were going to be crooks were going to be crooks. Having training did nothing to that. And when I got out into the real world, and I actually got into the real world of the ministry, and had to work with lay people to make churches work, it was always easier to convert an accountant to Christianity than to train a Christian to be an accountant. The answer, I believe, it's a great thing the Church of England realizes that it has a leadership deficit. More skills for the current crop of leaders may help things a little bit, but the reality is you have a whole country full with dynamic, entrepreneurial people who haven't yet been crushed by the dead hand of socialism. Convert those people to the saving faith of Jesus Christ and set them to work to turn your business and your church around. And you, bishop, you, priest, stick to the spiritual.
Absolutely. As you know, when I became a senior warden, I was taught early on the clergy are there for the spiritual, the vestry, the laity are there for the temporal. And I go, wow, that's you guys can divide that line in. I'm not gonna, there is a dividing line. Yes, there is a dividing line. And when you need to, if you are in need of an MBA or a business answer, you hire business people. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have people in your congregation who are of the accounting background, business background, use them, abuse them. They do in my church. And there's nothing wrong with that because God raises up those types of leaders. And your church should be a dynamic of all these types of different industries, whether it be the butcher, the banker, or the accountant.
See, Kevin, one of the things you see in the management world is every year there's a new book out, there's a new technique, there's a new way of doing things that makes everything done in the past obsolete. And if we only act in this certain way, all our business problems will be solved until the next book comes out.
That's right. Well,
Now,
did that?
but the reality of the situation is, if the Church of England and the Episcopal Church have been pursuing theological fads, they don't need to add to that business fads to distract them from the real work, which is going out telling the world about Jesus Christ and winning souls for the kingdom.
No, you don't need a hedge fund discipleship. Okay, I understand. But one of the things the Church of England did in hiring Justin Welby was to hire a businessman.
No, he's not a businessman.
I heard he was
a finance guy. And there's a difference.
What's the difference,
He's a finance guy at an oil firm.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, Kevin, I was chief operating officer for 7 years of a manufacturing firm that made pipe valves and fittings. I had background in the financial services industry. They are two completely different things.
Exactly.
Being a finance guy is not being a manager. That's a numbers cruncher who doesn't have to deal with people or the consequences of stupid actions and stupid decisions. Now, I'm sure Justin Welby had a very good, successful career in his field. God love him, wonderful guy. But let's not gild the lily and say, oh, look, a finance guy is going to show us the way forward to manage people. You know, that's just not the way the world works. It's one of the reasons the Church of England has driven away working class people. It's done a good job for 200 years of trying to be an upper middle class religion. And it doesn't have that history of working with tradesmen, of mechanics, of skilled people. It serves the very top and the very bottom of society and leaves everybody else out in the cold. And this whole management guru stuff is another exemplar of that. There are lots of successful small businessmen and women out there who could teach the Church of England more than any high-priced consultant ever could.
Amen. Now, George and I have had a lot of fun for the last 10 minutes and 30 seconds kicking around the Church of England. We do want you to pray.
It's such an easy target. I'm sorry.
It is an easy target. However, as Anglicans, we do want you to pray for the Mother Church. Yes, this is another in the many stupid things they've done. And, we'll have to deal with that, but we want you to pray for our Archbishop. We want you to pray for the Church of England. You want to say something, George?
Yes, I do want to say something, and it's one of the things that we got in feedback, which I think is a point that's vital to make.
Okay.
The Church of England may be in deep trouble. The Church in England is doing fine.
It's doing very good.
There are vibrant, alive, vital congregations, Anglican, Catholic, Independent, Presbyterian, what have you, Pentecostal. God is, praised, and the gospel is brought to people by churches. The institutional church, that's in trouble.
It is.
Christian faith, maybe not so much.
No. And we ask you to pray for the Church of England because when they come up with these wild-eyed, stupid ideas, it's so easy to come from the Church of England to the Church of Enron.
Mm-hmm.